So to start this biochar kiln, I just start a brush pile. And I want it to be generally a little, in the summertime, I want it to be a little bit smaller than the kiln. So that's 5 feet in diameter. This is a site that I've used a lot to manage this hickory orchard. And I reuse the same dirt for burying it. So I try not to get any sticks in here when I'm loading. That's just something to note at the beginning. But yeah, the fire's starting to get bigger. And then I'm going to tip over the kiln on top. And yeah, I don't have another person with me, so you'll just be seeing everything after the fact. Got this pile of not fully charred wood from past burns. Today I'm not burning chunk wood. This is what we call, like, you know, firewood. That's a little bit too big for a fireplace. Today I'm only burning brushwood, so I got that all prepared. But I'm trying to burn this last year's chunk wood that didn't fully char right now, and this is my time to do it. It's pretty wet because charred wood holds a lot of water, so I'm not expecting it to entirely disintegrate, but at least once it's done with this kiln, it'll be dry and ready to run in the next kiln. The best practice is if you have chunks, you put them directly from the current kiln into the next kiln without letting them get wet. Let's see if I can get this on video. So it's not maybe as big of a fire as I'd like to, but it's okay to tip it at this point. I'm making sure to tip it so that the flat side is facing up and the typically bottom is facing down. This gets all messed up from propping it when you're trying to burn chunk wood, firewood, in this. But this is how you tip. You just push it and hope that it hits just the right spot, and you got to move it really quick. Otherwise, it'll get really hot and you can't move it again. So this is not totally optimal for what I'm doing today, but it's fine. So hickory wood just kind of burns really slow, so the brush pile doesn't start as quickly. I want to burn the rest of those chunks, so I'm going to throw them in, and you want the fire to be on all of the perimeter before starting to put brush in. And once the fire's around all the perimeter, then these guys will be really easy to pull out because they'll be pretty well burnt, and you can just put them in the top. And then yeah, once you're ready to start putting brush in and all of this stuff is out, then you bury the edge, and I'll show you that. So all those partially charred pieces of wood were partially charred because they were a little too thick for firewood and a little too thick or weirdly shaped for firewood, and a little bit too thick for this kiln. And the process for burning those chunks is that you prop the bottom and then fill the kiln to the top and let it burn down. I'm not doing that today. So instead I'm just going to take these chunks, even though they're kind of wet, and just kind of like burn them down. I just want them to be gone at this point. I don't want the mice nesting in the pile of partially burned chunks, and yeah, I want to be done with them. So I'm going to let this burn for like 10 minutes, then I'm going to pull out the bottom sticks and then seal the bottom and then start loading brush. Kind of hard to demonstrate, but I just raked off these sticks because they were all burnt. Really hard to do by myself. These ones look like they still need a little bit of time. That came out pretty decently. And then I'm just going to throw those in the top of the kiln, and then I'm going to bury it once it's all clear. And you can't have any sticks or debris in your dirt barrier, otherwise it'll leak eventually when you're on the 3-day cool. So I raked everything clean. Now I'm going to shovel the dirt into the big holes first, and then I'll do the small holes. Then the flame will slow down and you'll be able to, it won't sound like a jet engine, so listen for this. That's the noise of it creeping through. So I sealed the bottom. I took the dirt out of the hole right here, sealed the bottom all the way around, and packed it in 2 or 3 times with my feet. Sometimes you got to rotate left foot, right foot, otherwise your feet are burning. And now we have the coals on the bottom, and we need to bridge that flame all the way to the top, and then we can bridge the brushy material after that. So I've been loading for a little bit. I'm just bridging over the top, and the tops of the branches, because I don't cut them to length, always do burn. They'll bury themselves in ash, and you can't scoop it up at the end. It's hot as shit though. But it's not worth messing with that in my experience, unless it's like a slow burn until it dies out, then maybe, but there will always be embers that will burn your arm, and I've gotten a lot of cauterizations doing that. So just keep piling up brush, and then eventually push in these sticks and it'll all work out. Just wanted to show you this because the kiln's running really good. There's flame all around the outside, which means that it's choking the inside. You can see on the right, there's a little bit of black smoke. That means that it's oxygen deprived, and on the left, it's burning really, really nicely right now. Let's keep it up, and it's a little over half full. The camera will turn off if I get too close because it's so hot. Now I've loaded all the brush. I'm gonna let that burn on the left. It'll take care of itself probably, and I'll put it out with the rake if not. It is an option to take, there's a lot of coals over there because that was the downwind side earlier. It's an option to scoop those up and put them in the kiln to save them. And then you'll get a little bit more yield, but it's really hard because at least with hickory, those coals radiate a lot of heat. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of let this calm down so I don't overheat, drink some water, eat some food, get some salty snacks, and then I'll clean it up and show you what goes on then. Okay, so I'm cleaning up the bottom of the kiln. I rake it up and then I chopstick it using a rake and a shovel, and I throw it in, and that's why it's burning really good, because there's a lot of fine debris that's already dried in the kiln. Really like the way that's flame capping. Still got to scoop all the coals. I'm close to overheated, and that's normal. That's why it's nice to do this in the winter. I pretty much got the ground cleaned up. Scooped the coals over there. You can see. Yeah, it's about half full. Now I'm going to take the lid that's over there and put it on top. Then I let it steam out, or not steam out, but smoke out a little bit. And then I put this cord on with the clips and weigh it down with logs. That's the next step. Tell how good quality of a kiln you ran by how much it smokes immediately after you close it. This is like a pretty typical kiln. It means there's some hydrocarbons left, but it's mostly good quality. And that could just be the sticks at the end. It also could be the chunks of char that weren't completely burnt at the bottom. Usually it's the large pieces of wood that get thrown in at some point that cause it. And the thing about biochar is it's really heterozygous, so, or hetero, I don't know what the term is. Heterozygous is probably correct. Where you'll have really good char in areas, and then you'll hit a chunk, and that's low quality char. It doesn't mean your whole batch is garbage. It just means that that section of the char is of a different quality. So there's this weird thing that happens oftentimes in the summer, only in the summer and only in full sun where you're burning, where the center of the kiln and the top of the biochar is like continually burning. Like the last kiln I opened up yesterday was burning just a little bit for the past month. And I don't think it was actually burning consistently. I think it was reigniting because the solar energy hits this cold rolled steel lid and it absorbs into the biochar, and biochar is really good at reigniting, and it's 0% moisture and all of that. And when you open up the lid and oxygen hits it, it reignites, and it's just really hot, and it's like not even really burning, but there are small amounts of cracks in this. Now this is not a welded kiln, and we have not yet had this issue on a welded kiln, but also I haven't run it much this summer. This is just my kiln at Badger Set, and this is where I make most of my biochar these days. But this is a fireplace sealed kiln, and I highly do not recommend it at this point because it requires constant maintenance and upkeep to keep those seals fully sealed. And one little leak will make it a pain in the butt to unload. And really dangerous to unload. So that's why I covered this center with a lot of pieces of wood so that it doesn't absorb as much solar energy and radiate it down into the char. So then I go around and poke this fireplace gasket up to make sure that it's fully sealed. You'll notice that the smoke is stopping a little bit more, and I clip it in 4 spots just in case like a dog comes up or a horse comes up and pulls on the fireplace gasket. Hasn't happened to me yet, even though there used to be a horse named Copper who roamed free, and even though the dogs can get into some some stuff around here. And then you'll notice that the air comes through the most where this connection point is, and that's okay, because we're sealed everywhere else, and you need flow to make the fire continue. And basically you just need to seal it good enough, and this has been good enough. Never use sod to seal the bottom. Sod will create cracks. You need tilthy dirt, and oftentimes I'll use the top sod, but it takes a lot more effort. If you go to the subsoil, oftentimes it's a lot easier to get tilthy dirt. I don't think this part is actually necessary. I've never seen a burn coming from the front absorbing too much heat. I think it has something to do with the color. I think the fact that this is black and covered with soot or like oils from biochar, I do think that absorbs more heat and then radiates it down more. I've never seen this aluminized kiln ever burn holes in the front, but I protect against that, and at least it'll be a little cooler to the touch and won't be as confusing. Down here, this is the downhill side. I want to make sure that the rain doesn't carve away any of my dirt, and yeah, plus there's a possible leak on the bottom that I didn't fill up with fireplace sealant. Again, weld your kilns, don't use fireplace sealant. It chips out all the time, even if you get the best stuff. Temps are just too hot. But yeah, I'm gonna leave this. I think I'm calling it done. Oh, and I forgot to mention, when you are done with this, you wait for 3 days at least, and then you shovel out the dirt on the bottom, and then you just tip over the kiln and you have your biochar.